Good evening, Danvers. My name is Mark Zubarek, and I bring you the June 2nd, 2022 Topics of the Town News broadcast. I will be talking about several items. One of them is Danvers Memorial Day Parade, town meeting results, school department status, Beverly Airport meeting and status. Welcome to our local broadcast intended for an open exchange of ideas and questions, providing forum for our residents, commentators, and meant for Danvers residents. I have a First Amendment quote here, but I will just quickly read it because I've used it many times over, because this program is basically about your and mine First Amendment rights. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. This is basically a commentary on our news that has been happening in our little town. Our voices will change the world, and I've used that clip many times, but all I want to do is tell you that YouTube, in their efforts to censor our voices, has removed Topics of the Town news from their platform. However, the last program, which was in May, has reappeared back on YouTube, and we'll see if they censor us or not. We were banned from presenting our content because they, YouTube, claim we had misinformation. We are now producing the program for DCAT cable programming and our show, and can be viewed on the internet at danverstv.org under Topics of the Town. We have probably 6 shows that have been deposited into a different program, and you can access that on danverstv.org under the Topics of the Town. The agenda and opinions are solely by the Topics of the Town host and, in many cases, commentators. We have a report that I like to do in regards to segment 1, which is Memorial Day, Remembrance Day, first parade and real celebration in 2 years, basically. So I have 2 clips that I've shot at the parade, and this was a Please Join Us Honoring All Veterans Memorial Day events. Parade starting from the Town Hall at 9 a.m. Town Hall ceremony following parade approximately 10 a.m. And I did not wait for that ceremony because that's a lot of speeches that do not represent what I feel Memorial Day is about. The second clip that I have, this was a very, very interesting addition that the town provided for the residents, because that was the first time I've seen that flag raised so high over the square, the intersection of Sylvan Street. That really represented a new view of what we really stand for, and this is a celebration and a remembrance of our veterans that have died during the past wars. The second clip is basically a remembrance of our children that are marching, the Girl Scouts in this case, were marching off on Sylvan Street, and they provided a very nice representation of our residents, and they really had a good time. We also had the Danvers, what do you call it, the bugle team, and we also have a representation from the fire department, police department, and this was recorded by DCAT at the kickoff of the parade, and it can be seen on the government channel on DCAT cable channel 41 on Verizon. So we will continue, and I was very impressed with the organization and the professionalism of that parade, because this has been missing for 2 years. Last year, basically, there was a drive-by, and the year before was another drive-by. I went to the drive-by and stood at the corner, and it was already gone. So I appreciate that. Thank you for organizing this. This is something that Dick Moody and the veterans have been waiting for, and I'm glad it happened. Segment 2 in our program tonight, I just wanted to repeat and rephrase some of the comments that I've made during the last show, because that was as a result of the town meeting. And the town meeting approved the budget. They spent $130 million in 8 minutes. And that is claimed by some of the town officials that it was the shortest town meeting on record. And I wasn't there, but I was there at the back of the room, watched the parade go by, and I'm telling you, it was, no questions were asked. However, what I like to do is just give you a little bit of statistical information that has been provided to us very nicely in the budget book that was issued, and I even received one, and this is the town budget for year 2023. And the town has grown to 27,586 residents. When I was on the board, it was down to 24,000, 25,000, so it has grown over the years. We have 14,983 female residents, and we have 12,597 male residents. That's quite a big difference. The owner-occupied units, we have 7,626 units, and then rented occupied units, 3,063 apartments or condos. And that's a 30% of condos and rentals, where the town has a total of roughly 10,000 units of homes that we live in. So this is a very interesting piece of information that has been provided to us, and I think we need to really study this, because the numbers do change. We have 725 employees in this town. And the non-tax supported employees is another 75. So we're talking about 800, roughly 800 employees that work for this town. So the statistical information is available. Very concise. I appreciate it, and I congratulate our finance department for providing this information, but that information only appears to the town meeting members. The residents need to study this as well because they are the ones that are paying the bills. One of the things that I noticed on this statistical information is that the only significant change in the number of employees is in the school department. School department went from last year, which was 22, was 472 employees, and it went up by 7 employees to 479 employees that are paid for by our tax rate. The one thing that I do not understand, and we'll get to that when we start talking about Essex Tech, is that the population in the school department, the students, is decreasing. The high school went down by 150 students, but the number of educators, teachers, and administrators has gone up by 7 in 1 year. Now, we don't know what the number is this year of how many students have left the school department, but it must be increasing because we have been looking at that number for many, many years. So, what I have here today is a piece of statistical information that I just provided, but the big things about the town meeting and the results were budget. The American Rescue Plan funds, they were spent. They were spent $8.5 million, and they were not even mentioned at the town meeting, and they were not concurred or blessed by the town meeting because the town meeting is supposed to be the body that's legislative, and it approves the budgets that are presented. What are the important issues for the school committee? Budget, again. State and federal funds. They also have $3.7 million that they were supposed to use for COVID repairs to their staffing levels and space for the additional students at the Essex Tech. What have we got for the money that we're spending? And what I have looked at is we have a budget that has been put together by the town hall, and it is representative of the entire school budget, which includes the portion that the town provides, and it is up to $70 million. All they ever talk about is the $46 million that is administered by the school committee, but the other $20 million are being spent by the town in support of the school department, school facilities, fields, and everything else that goes along. So that's the big results that I've seen from the town meeting. Why do we have so many town warrant articles on the agenda? Because that's where our funds, our rescue plan funds, $8.5 million, and 7.5, let's say, $7.5 million of free cash, which is left over from last year's budget, that's a good thing, but it is being spent on specialty items that the town is providing. Why do we have so many town warrant articles? Where are real estate taxes really spent? These taxes are maxed out to the ability of 2.5 override, or the capacity to tax, because what they want to do is collect the taxes even though they may not be spent, because the budget is built to accommodate every penny that's available. And that's fine. But let's be honest. The funds are spent on specialty items, capital projects mainly. And one of the big items is we're talking about solar panels at the dump. $4 million is being spent on preparing the dump for the solar panels. We don't even know if those panels can be installed. But that's something to be seen. People need to have an eye on what's going on. Do people feel comfortable reaching out to our elected officials? Well, I have seen and I have felt at some of these meetings that people are afraid to raise issues because they don't want to have a ramification of being criticized for their question. Or are people afraid to open any dialogue at all because they don't want to face the almighty board of selectmen, and the almighty board from the school committee? Now, the select board, in their last meeting, which was scheduled for selecting the chairman, was very interesting because there were nominations for continuation of the chairmanship of the current chairman, but it was objected to by the former chairman. So they finally resolved the matter by appointing an alternate, which was a previous 3 years ago, I believe, Dan Bennett was chairman. And since then, Gardner Trask has been chairman, and he finally gave up the seat to Dan Bennett, and that's who's our new chairman of the Board of Selectmen. So, the next item that I have on here, and we're running out of time, citizens petition. And this is a petition that has been requested by the general public with enough signatures to put it on the ballot. It was on the ballot, but it was not supported by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen, for some reason, are afraid of a recall petition because they are afraid of their position on the Board of Selectmen, because that's one of the boards that would be used to recall if there was an incident that needed it. I am very surprised that the Board of Selectmen did not proceed with this article, but they prepared, the town manager prepared the article, which is exactly the same as Wenham just did 2 years ago. And it's a element of our government that provides access to our people. David, if we can show the quote from Thomas Jefferson: "When the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty." Thomas Jefferson was a pretty smart guy. He used this as a vehicle for the federal government, has a recall petition or similar to ours, but they have, other states have those petitions. But our town government did not want to impose that restriction on our elected officials because they were afraid of the electorate. So that's the end of that one. I think that will be coming back. It's a matter of time and when it can be done. One of the petitions that may come up in the next town meeting or even before is to open the town meeting charter or the town charter and the Town Manager Act and put those restrictions right into our charter, which was approved back in 1949, I believe. And that's where it probably will reside at the end, but it needs to be handled directly by the voters in this town. So, segment 4, discussion of liberal faction of the Finance Committee. I will just I have 43 pages worth of material that I like to do, but I was very concerned with the responsibilities that the Finance Committee took upon themselves in regard to the Essex Tech financing and the restrictions that they wanted the town to impose on the number of students that could go to Essex Tech. Finance Committee has no responsibility in regard to the process of selecting students or assigning students to different schools. They have no responsibility for our school department, and they do not have any responsibility for the Essex Tech department. They do have a responsibility of finding the funds for paying for the 231 students that went to Essex Tech. And that was available. The town manager had no problem in finding the money for that. He even increased the budget for our school department because he needed to spend some of the COVID money that was available. And that money is coming through the town to the school department. But one of the things that I just like to give you a little, this year the town declared a multi-million-dollar free cash. An oxymoron, nothing is free. This is commendable, but it also means that the budget was inflated just to capture all possible real estate taxes and maximizes the increase allowed under the 2.5% levy capacity. The bloating of the budget is allowed and called a balanced budget. So, this is a vehicle for maximizing the collection of the taxes according to the law that has been implemented back in the 80s. These excess funds included in the budget will then be called free cash and will be spent on projects by funding of warrant articles which may or may not be the best interest of the taxpayers, but will be funded to support our facilities. The proposed budget approved by the town meeting establishes the tax rate for next year and continues to be punitive to the resident. No wonder real estate taxes are high, and even the tax classification has not worked in favor of the residential taxpayers. Our residential taxpayers are taxed to the max. And one of the things that we need to review is at this town meeting, this is when the town tax rate is really established, and that's what the Finance Committee should be looking at instead of meddling in the number of students that can attend a particular school. There are discussions going on right now that even a charter school may be present close to the Danvers boundary, And that may be a good thing because that will attract another several students from our community for an education that's better qualified and become a better student, because charter schools are more direct in applying education to our students. Town officials believe they are entitled to taxing you to the max for their management, inaptitude, and poor decisions. You will never hear that the cost of management team was or are increasing and staff positions are increasing and that the wages and benefits are skyrocketing. Just look at the latest report on of salaries and wages. I requested an annual report that the town used to provide to the newspapers of the 100 highest paid employees in our town. 100 out of 800, that's a small number. But every single one of those employees in that list was over $120,000, and the highest one was $230,000. So don't call it public service, call it employment, because that's what it is. It's professional employment. The salaries and wages of all the directors and managers which have been created as a result of the reorganization and expansion of town government. There was a proposal to double the selectman's stipend at one time. I don't know what really happened with that. But we're still spending too much. The selectmen should show restraint in spending and provide relief to our most vulnerable residents, the elderly, and the young families who are trying to survive in this town. Stop the tax to the max policies and adopt constraints on spending to support the people who elected you. That's my preaching to the Board of Selectmen, but it's, it happens every year. The one thing that the selectmen cannot deny is that they are responsible for the budget because they are the ones that hire and pay the town manager for doing their dirty work. So, Essex Tech has been covered. One of the solutions that was never discussed about the Essex Tech funding is that our school department, who now spends through the combined effort of the town and the school committee, $70 million to educate 3,000 students, which is reducing every year. The one thing that has been discussed over and over again is, why are these students going to Essex Tech and not staying at Danvers High School? Well, there's been many different comments made about that, and there have been school committee candidates that have asked for the resignation of the school committee and the administration at the Danvers school system. But now they got elected and they're very quiet, sitting there observing of what's going on. Let's get moving on this and determine why are we lacking in keeping our students at the Danvers School Department. One of the suggestions was made, and it was never introduced at town meeting. Why not reduce the current budget for Danvers schools by $500,000, $500,000, and transfer it to the cost anticipated at Essex Tech? Now, Essex Tech is almost $4 million, and this year's increase was $470-some thousand. So $500,000, take it from the school department, put it in to compensate for the Essex Tech tuition, and compensate the cost by being incurred for the Essex Tech students because we are no longer educating those 231 students at the Danvers school system. We need to be a little bit more creative. That would give the incentive to the school department to figure out why and how they can keep these students in our school system instead of educating them at the Essex Tech, which is a magnet school. But we also have students that are going to St. John's Prep, Bishop Fenwick, and possibly the new proposed school that will be a charter school. This is what's happening. We need to determine what are we doing wrong in our school department and how we can fix it. So, one of the things that was discussed at some of the meetings that I went to and reported on is that students, our kids and grandkids, are indoctrinated daily with radical, hateful, immoral, and racist techniques, teachings in their school districts, including critical race theory, sex and gender ideology, and much more. Now, everybody in the school department denies that this is happening, but I believe that this has to be proven, and I will ask for Freedom of Information Act and ask for what are we actually teaching in our school system. So, one of the things that I like to do is it's time for Danvers to speak up as united voice to tell the education establishment we're watching and we want them to stop indoctrinating our kids and with radical left propaganda. The indoctrination in our schools is being disguised and needs to be exposed. Parents and the community must ask for leadership from our school committee. We need public communication and not the dribble on the websites rarely opened by our residents. Technology is not the answer for communications. Communications of the school committee to the general public in our community is woefully lacking because nobody knows, except maybe some of the parents when they get their emails from the school department, what the heck is going on in our school system. 27,000 of us are living in this community. There are 3,000 students that are in this community. Where is the reflection of the taxpayers that are paying the bill for our school department? We need to share the information to the general public. So, one of the things that I would like to do is I have my favorite clip, and it's Albert Einstein, and this is so appropriate what's going on right now, is I fear the day that technology, social media or emails, will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots. Albert said that, probably 100 years ago. And this still continues right now because we are so wrapped up in social media and the internet and the websites that are produced all over the place. It is available, but the thing is, it needs the human communication. So now this really leads me into the final segment, and this is in regard to the Beverly Airport and the progress of what's going on. Last week, I was present at one of the first in-person meetings at the main conference room at Beverly Airport on the west side. They had everybody that's a tenant in there, and they had everybody that's a commissioner, and some of the commissioners would not even come into the meeting because they wanted to be remote. They didn't want to expose themselves. Well, it was very disruptive, and the discussion that took place was very disappointing because the only thing that happened is that the discussion was finally focused in on the airport noise and expansion of the airport and how it's going to affect our public. So, just to give you a breakdown of what's been happening over the last 2 years, basically, is that the airport commissioners who claim that they have no power over the airport have not even held a meeting. They've had 2 years worth of either remote or no meetings at all. And the only thing that I can gather from the agendas and the meeting notices is that there has been an awful lot of private matters being taken care of in executive sessions because they haven't had a public meeting for a long time. So there has been some activity at the airport. The airport has basically changed the operations. They have a new contract with an operator at the east side, and they're an outside organization that has many other airports, and they're not local. They do not have any responsibility to the communities that surround them because the commission is not even concerned about that. Now, Scott Dulé, who was the chairman at last year, was very, very receptive, and I congratulate him, and I regret that he's resigned because he was the only person on that commission, Beverly Airport Commission, that listened to what the residents had to say. However, things have been happening in regards to the effects of the air traffic, the flights, the timing of flights. Finally, after 2.5 years, residents have raised their voice in regards to the flights that were happening, touch and goes, basically at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. These are required, I guess, for their license, but I don't know why they have to do it in Danvers or in Beverly. They can do it at Lawrence. They can do it at other airports, but no, they want to do it at Beverly because they are permitted to do that by our Beverly Airport manager. However, after many, many emails and complaints that have been filed with the airport tower, and then there was a chain of approximately 20 to 25 individual emails, addresses, that have been gathered from the committee that Scott Dulé, in his wisdom, established with the residents of Danvers, Wenham, and Beverly. And those people were listening and observing what was going on with the traffic at the airport. Now, all of a sudden, a week ago, the touch and goes and the timing of the touch and goes has changed, because I believe, and I will give this to you, is it's because the mayor, Michael Cahill, finally responded to his constituents who were complaining. Nobody from Danvers gave a damn, but the mayor finally, and I've been quoting the mayor for many, many months, and finally he responded to his constituent from Beverly, because the gentleman that made the stink about the flights at 11 p.m. was very accurate in his position. Now, I have been publishing the communications that can happen. And David, if we can just throw up the communication sheets, I have 4 pages of communications. Contact information with your concerns about the expansion of Beverly Airport and the past and current noise issues. One of the one of our representatives is Congressman Seth Moulton. Seth Moulton has a representative here in Salem, Norm Abbott. Now, Norm Abbott has been very, very cooperative, and he has been working with Seth Moulton in trying to get some campaign, email campaign about noise is ongoing, and he's identified many activities that have been happening in the federal side on the Federal Aviation Administration. So they have been filing bills, but bills do not respond to the people that are being affected. They need to expedite those bills and get them to curtail some of these activities, because our airport, and it is our airport as well, Beverly Airport is right in the backyards of several properties on Old Burley Street on the east side, and it's also on the west side. So Federal Aviation Administration, every time you talk to the management at Beverly Airport, the manager, Gloria Bullion, it's a federal activity. It doesn't pertain to us. Yes, it does. You are the manager, and the commission has to have some teeth to get this changed. Jeffrey DiCarlo is a representative from the Massachusetts Aeronautics Commission. He's located at Logan Airport. And I worked at Logan Airport, and they are very sensitive to the noise levels, because that airport is right on Winthrop's back door and Revere back door, and it comes in from the South Shore as well. So we have a double whammy, because right now we have the Logan traffic that circles and goes to Logan Airport right over Danvers, Topsfield, and Beverly. Now, those individuals are capable to respond to your emails. I will forward this list, and if we can go further, David, we have been assisted by local mayors, and here's Mr. Cahill comes out of hiding finally, and he has somehow got the attention of the airport commission and the airport manager, because he is the ultimate responsible person for the airport. And we need to be able to address him. And we have the email and we have the telephone number to the City Hall. We also have had a contribution from Sally Kearns, our state representative. Now, there's the address and information that you can contact her. They have not been very successful, but they at least listen. The next one is Senator Lovely, Joan Lovely. Now, as a matter of fact, at the end of the town meeting last month, on the 16th, I ran into Senator Lovely and I expressed my concerns about the late flights and how can the Senate provide guidance and some response to our neighbors, because they do not have the quality of life that they deserve. So there's the information for her. Further down, I think we have, there's airport commissioners, Beverly and Danvers. Now, we have two commissioners on the commission, Aaron Henry and Matthew Mazur. Now, Matthew Mazur has been involved with the Noise Committee, which has been pretty active, but they have no teeth. They have no authority on anything. And this is where the commission has to come to play. Aaron Henry has to get involved because he is our representative to the airport and needs to step up and give some direction, because that airport is getting out of control and people are fed up with it. Now, a little further, we have Beverly Airport Management. That's where Gloria Bullion, and that's the address and location for her office. She's located on the west side in the main new facility, which is very nice. But she hasn't been able to be at her job because she's on medical leave. So, what we have is, excuse me, we have opposition to the master plan. And the master plan has been discussed many times, and what it is, it's an expansion of the runway into the Danvers Woods or neighborhood, and an expansion into the Beverly side, and that's as far as they can go in Beverly. So we're talking about increasing the length of the runway from 5,001 foot to 5,601 feet. The reason for all of that is to allow jet traffic and commutes to Nantucket, to Maine, to New Hampshire. They want to be a commuter airport. Well, by extending the runways into our neighborhoods, in our backyards, we are creating more noise and we're getting the fumes from the jet fuel. Now, at the meeting that I attended, there was one petition that was being dragged out for, I guess, the 2 or 3 months. They were talking about it privately, but finally the individual came in and he wants to locate another helicopter at the Beverly Airport location. Now, this one is going to be a sightseeing helicopter. We already have 3 helicopters out there for the news media, which go out early in the morning, and then they go out early in the afternoon, and for the rush hour, they communicate the videos for the news broadcasts. Well, the airport commissioners, in their great wisdom, approved it. So now they have 4 helicopters instead of 3, which were controlled to the time frames of the day. Aerial helicopters that go out and view the ocean and the mountains, and they go out at any time of the day. Another noisemaker, and the commission allowed it to happen because they did not have the guts to say no, because they do not care about our neighbors. So I'm being very critical because I see what's going on. I listen to this, and I will have a report of the meeting. We're going to clear the film tomorrow, and that'll be as a special, because that's the meeting that I think everybody should be able to attend and not be restricted. Now, that's the meeting that we need to discuss. Danvers Select Board has delayed any update by our Danvers commissioners. They have been too busy to respond. We have assessed valuation of for the 170 acres in Danvers, and it is worth over $1 million in tax revenue. Why are we leaving the revenue on the table? Now, everybody claims that it's federally protected and all that. No, it's not. You can petition the legislation and make them pay the taxes. They pay Wenham's taxes already, but we were foolish enough to have 2 commissioners at the time. This was back in the 90s and 2000, and it didn't work out very well for us. The airport manager and commission and Beverly mayor are waiting out this issue and will come through with a dictate, take it or leave it. They want the expansion and have filed the FAA $20 million grant application, now awaiting the results. At the meeting, the consultant for the expansion was very cagey in expressing, where does it stand. He wouldn't tell us where it stood, but he said there were some environmental issues. Well, one of the issues that I brought up, and it has been expanded, is that we need an environmental impact statement for the noise and fume levels that are coming out of Beverly Airport on the east side specifically, because those are residential areas. We don't want cancer happening to our residents. We don't want hearing aids to be issued to our residents. I may need a hearing aid pretty soon. I hope the Beverly Airport pays for it. So, Beverly Airport Commissioner Chairman and organization of the neighborhoods Danvers, Wenham, and Beverly Noise Committee, and is working to address the noise issues. They have no teeth. All they can do is talk about it. That's where, hopefully, Mayor Cahill comes into play. I've also proposed an action plan of what should happen, and I will get into that next show, but it is very extensive and it needs public attention, because the public needs to step up as well and defend their turf, because the airport is going to run all over you. So the emails that I have been receiving, and I'm copied on most of them, and I appreciate that, is there are issues that are not being addressed, and the commissioners are sleeping at the wheel. The airport manager is non-involved in any of the activities at the airport. She's been on medical leave for a year and a half, and all they're talking about is suits that have been filed against the airport, and we need to step up and defend our turf in Danvers. So when Norm Abbott, when Mayor Cahill finally responded to some of the complaints, and hi Jim, and this is Mayor Cahill speaking to his constituent. I really appreciate the response, and I respect you and thank you for it. I also appreciate your frustration and don't want it to continue, and I will reach out to you offline. What does that mean? He's going to be talking to this one individual and forget about the rest of us? We need some action from the mayor because he is holding the purse strings for the airport and the expansion of it. So what I have done is I'm down to 3 minutes, and what I like to do is thank you for listening. I know that this may be very trite, or some people don't care about it, but there are many, many residents in the town of Danvers that need to have this addressed. When will this town discuss the issues that affect us all? We need to communicate in person and share the vision and objectives of our community. Our elected officials do not want to conduct open meetings with in-person communications. We need interaction to come up with the quality of life we deserve. This is Beverly Airport. This is Essex Tech. This is how we retain Danvers School Department students in Danvers. Our town meeting members who are up for election have a tremendous responsibility to represent our residents, but appear to stay in the background. The town meeting is the legislative body for the town government and needs to stand up and be counted. So I encourage the communications with your town meeting members, because our town meeting is very lax right now. We need to get our positions presented, and our residents need to be represented. So the one thing that I like to do is my next show will be on June 23rd. It had to be delayed because of conflict with another show. And what I like to do is thank David Rodriguez, who has been our constant companion here at our presentations, and he's a DCAT employee, and he has been tremendous support for the show, and I appreciate it with all my heart because this is important. Does not necessarily mean that it's all confined to specific issues, but there are general issues that need to be discussed and questions need to be raised. So thank you for joining us tonight. And I am coughing like crazy, but I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks so we can complete this show and go to another version that we'll be presenting as of the 21st of June. Good night, Danvers. Thank you very much for listening, and hope you come back in 2 weeks. Thank you.